information being provided to this council and by the interpretations of the information by the council persons. Here's some examples. The city staff recommends regarding the now 5 projects denied to Headquist Construction, all discuss Headquist Construction in detail, even though they aren't even awarding the projects to Headquist Construction. They are suspiciously devoid of any information relating to the contractors being awarded these contracts. Why didn't the recommendation on the Yellowstone project state that Knife River is behind on last year's chip and seal project for the county, and that the Country Club Road project for the city of Casper was originally scheduled to be done in October 2014 and didn't even start until March of 2015, and is still not complete? The delay has caused safety and logistic problems in that local neighborhood, as the Country Club held some of the largest golf tournaments this year, and people had to drive through neighborhoods. Why doesn't the engineer's recommendation even mention those facts? Was Knife River late on 2 county airport projects recently? Was that information in the packet? I didn't read it. The undeniable fact is that a non-local contractor recommended by the city for the Yellowstone project is late right now on a city project. What about information relating to the contractor that was awarded the YMCA contract? Where was that information prior to the late performances and assessment of liquidated damage that it had had previously with the city? I've asked at previous meetings at council to ask these questions, but nothing has been asked, at least in my presence, and nothing has been reported in any of the recommendations. I would also like to address a statement made by Councilman Hopkins at last month when the council voted to deny Headquist Construction another bid. Councilman Hopkins stated that the recommendation was coming from a third-party engineer. In that case, it was CEPI. That is incorrect, at least on that YMCA project, as I spoke with CEPI, and they did put in a bid list, and they put an estimated project cost, but they made no recommendation on which contractor should be chosen. That decision was made solely by city staff to John Patterson. The recommendation is in your packet, and it's always from city staff to the city manager, and does not mention a third-party engineer's recommendation, and there is no third-party recommendation provided. Secondly, your obligation to fiscal responsibility. Wyoming is overwhelmingly a conservative place, and Casper is no exception. We are careful about public expenditures, and we should be. I was struck by the irony of 2 articles featured in Casper Star Tribune this morning. One on the expected drop in state income due to coal, and the one on council's intentional non-award of city contracts to the lowest bidder. Now, more than ever, Casper should strive for fiscal responsibility. Now, I've heard and seen almost all your comments publicly on liquidated damages assessed to Headquist Construction, so I'd like to talk briefly about liquidated damages for a moment. Most troubling is you are seeing liquidated damages information in a vacuum. As I stated, you have seen none of the historical data relating to all bidding contractors. If I were sitting in your seat, I would consider that essential information. The mayor, last time I was in front of you, stated the reason for not awarding these contracts to Headquist Construction was delays on construction projects cost taxpayers money. This reflects a misunderstanding of contracts and liquidated damages. Liquidated damages are provided for in construction contracts to compensate the city for late performance, because the cost of delays cannot be quantified. Unfortunately, contract delays and liquidated damages are just natures of the beast when it comes to construction. Talk to any contractor in town, and they will tell you the same thing. It is simply impossible to predict any and all problems that might arise on the job. I know recently you granted an extension on the Casper Parkway project due to an unanticipated construction issue, even though I know at the bid meeting it was stated no exceptions would be granted. Now, Mr. Tom Brower of CEPI recently gave a deposition in the federal lawsuit case, and he was asked about liquidated damages. And in his estimation, about half of all projects that he is aware of are completed after the original project deadline. Half. Of those, about half are assessed liquidated damages. Tom Brower stated that the assessment of liquidated damages must be fair and reasonable. Liquidated damages compensate the city for delays. Delays don't cost taxpayer monies. Delays cost contractors money. It is a misconception that liquidated damages cost taxpayers money. Not accepting low bids for city work costs taxpayers money. Almost $822,000 in aggregate if these two contracts are not awarded to Headquist Construction. The truly troubling and factual consequences of the council's decisions to not award Headquist Construction City projects as the lowest bidder is, as I just said, $822,500. To me, this constitutes an unconscionable and shameful waste of public resources. And finally, third, these actions by the council, city staff, and this city manager constitute blatant retaliation against Craig Headquist and his company. As I've stated before, it's disturbing that the city continues to find Headquist Construction not a responsible bidder, even though the city engineer's office did send him a nice letter asking him to bid on future projects. And 2 weeks ago, this council voted to table the contracts considered in council today. The purpose of that delay was to allow more time for the city engineer to discuss with Headquist Construction on how to proceed with future agreements. At the request and urgency of the city, last Friday, city engineering staff met with Court Headquist, which is Craig Headquist's brother, and also shareholder and employee of Headquist Construction, regarding how to move forward with Headquist Construction being awarded contracts. At the meeting, Court Headquist addressed and explained various Headquist Construction projects on schedule this summer, and with few exceptions, this summer. Court provided that Headquist Construction had an adequate labor and equipment to complete these pending projects, as well as other projects in the future. Court stated he would be the lead project manager and the contact person on the jobs instead of Craig. Craig would not be part of this deal. And he has a great working relationship with Andrew Beamer and the other city staff, unlike Craig. After the meeting, it was disheartening when I opened up on Monday morning the recommendation in the packet, and it was not changed, and it just reverted back to the original recommendation to give it to the second lowest bidder. The recommendation of city staff remains the same. They point out that Headquist Construction was late on 4 projects, as Mr. Kensep stated, and it also stated that he is currently late at the Natrona County Airport project. To briefly address that issue regarding that project, the airport director himself in today's paper stated he is unconcerned with the delay. This is because airport construction, due to the safety issues involved, is much more focused on quality versus time and speed. And I'm glad, because I land at that airport a lot. I've been involved with 4 airport projects for various other clients, and none have hit the final completion date due to extreme requirements in aviation projects. The city packet and recommendations continue to lack any evidence of due diligence on the other contractors. Why didn't the city staff put anything in the previous or current recommendations on any of the other contractors? Some of the other contractors have been late and assessed liquidated damages by the city or other owners in local projects. Some of the other contractors are currently late on projects. The only difference is those contractors don't have the name Headquist in them. The knowing and willful failure by the city engineer's office and this council to uniformly investigate the bidding contractors is arbitrary and retaliatory. Ask yourself, why does WYDOT, the City of Mills, private developers in Natrona County, and other municipalities continue to presently have contracts with Headquist Construction on projects? It is only the City of Casper that refuses to award the contract to the lowest bidder when the lowest bidder is Headquist Construction. WYDOT has approved Headquist Construction in 2015 with a pre-qualification limit of $52 million, which is based on past performance, amount of labor and equipment, and bonding capacity. I don't know if that's true of most of the other bidders on that list. But as Councilmember Cathy stated in yesterday's paper, or I think it was today's, he doesn't care if Headquist Construction does it for free. He isn't awarding another project. If that doesn't scream retaliation and vendetta, I don't know what does. I guess the taxpayers' money isn't important to certain members on council despite campaign promises on fiscal responsibility. In fact, since Craig Headquist resigned, and this is just a question, why is the city of Casper paying for outside counsel to sit as a city attorney? The reason Bill Lubin stepped down was due to the alleged conflict of interest created by Craig Headquist's presence on council. Due to the recent resignation, there's no conflict of interest. And the city of Casper should not be paying any more taxpayer dollars for independent counsel. It no longer needs. And then at previous ones that I've sat and listened to regarding the alleged conflict of interest, council members have expressed that they would not award Headquist Construction a contract while Mr. Headquist was on council. Mr. Headquist resigned. As some of you have publicly stated, your reasons for not awarding Headquist Construction was due to the conflict of interest. I then would expect that you can now vote to award Headquist Construction the lowest bidder. In yesterday's Casper Star Tribune, there was an article by Tom Dixon on city leaders looking forward to after the departure of Headquist and Patterson. Councilmember Pacheco stated, "We want to move forward." I've heard the same sentiments expressed by many of you. This is a chance for you to move forward and quit making taxpayers bear the burden of your personal dislike for Craig Headquist, and in retaliation for his public statements about the city manager and members of council. I would say let's move forward and award the contract to the actual lowest responsible bidder. As Councilwoman Mandel stated, we need to really watching the pennies of the city closely. For the sake of the taxpayers, we need to seriously reflect on why you are not awarding the contracts to Headquist Construction and wasting taxpayers' money. You are representatives of the city of this, you're citizens of the city, and you have an obligation not to use the city coffers to fund this vendetta against Craig Headquist.